Today's February 13th, and we're looking at what happens when pain stays trapped inside us and how different spiritual frameworks tell us how to deal with it. One invites expression and honesty, another offers peace through gratitude for suffering, and the third suggests that not listening well enough is a moral failure. Let's slow this down, stay curious, and see what actually leads to healing, not shame. Hi, I'm Candy. I'm a hypnotherapist who's deconstructing from evangelical Christianity, and I know how mindset shapes our behavior. So, in this series, I'm going to share my daily reflections from 3 different devotionals. The Book of Awakening by Mark Nepo, and that one's a little more spiritual, non religious. Also, Jesus Calling by Sarah Young, which is a very modern Christian approach. And My Utmost for His Highest by Oswald Chambers, which is a very classic Christian angle. My goal is to help you see how each one of these devotionals or these day books might shape your mindset a little differently. And if you're into that kind of reflection, please like and follow for more. Let's get started. Today is February 13th, and in the Book of Awakening, a couple of quotes that I pulled from the book is, "What is not expressed is depressed," which I think is pretty self-explanatory, but I'll talk about it in a minute. And the other one is, "The more we give voice to our pain in living, the less buildup we have between our soul and our way in the world." And I have found this to be true in my own life. I have seen it happen in clients' lives. When you have a safe place to express yourself, to really express out what you're really feeling and not hiding it, sometimes you'll see it from a different angle and it will lose its power. Sometimes it will help you see your own power. But getting it out instead of holding it in makes it more concrete so you can look at it. It actually doesn't make it more concrete. I mean to say it makes it, instead of abstract in your mind and it doesn't have beginning and an ending and no shape, you get it outside of yourself so you can look at it. So you separate yourself from it a little bit. You create some separation so that you can look and decide if it's true or whatnot. And that can ease depression. When someone doesn't have a safe place to express how they really feel, or doesn't have the words, or because you don't need the words. Words can come later sometimes, but it's really being able to express it physically too sometimes. Like if you're angry and you're holding it in, obviously you don't want to hurt somebody or yourself, but going for a run, scribbling on paper, screaming in a pillow, singing, humming, all those things help the body move, the nervous system move those emotions through that energy, so that then you can get back in a connected state. Your prefrontal cortex turns back on, and then you can have, after you've voiced that pain, even without words, you have less buildup, and then you can kind of see which direction to go without all the emotion blocking your view, if that makes sense. So I thought that was a really good one for today, and I hope you agree. In Jesus Calling today, the quote is, "To provide this radiant peace for you," this is Jesus talking, I died a criminal's death. Receive my peace abundantly and thankfully." And this one just struck me a certain way, because I know it's meant to bring comfort that, hey, I died a criminal's death, so basically you should be really thankful because now you have this peace and it's this rare, dazzling treasure. And you also, Jesus in Christianity is taught as God and was there in the beginning and created the need for him to die a criminal's death. Created, that was the solution for the problem that he created the potential for. So it's a story. The story seems like, when you step back out of Christianity and you look at it, it sounds like a being or a God who created a story to glorify himself. That he was so full of himself that he was going to cause problems he was going to create a creation, make it really hard for them, punish them if they didn't agree with him about how wonderful he was, and actually even become a martyr to himself, as himself, so that he would get more praise. It just sounds really narcissistic, to be honest. So I just thought it was really what this mindset this can give you is like you're just thankful to God because you deserved this criminal's death, right? You deserved it. You don't deserve the peace unless you are thankful for the death that he did to himself, to be honest. And that creates it does create a mindset, and it creates a way that you behave in the world, because then you can be upset at other people for not doing it. You can push your opinion on other people in this area to get them to believe it because you don't want them to suffer at the hands of this God, basically in hell. But you also you'll lean on they deserve it because they didn't choose it, and so obvious, which it's not. And that you should love Jesus because of what he did for you. But he set it up so that that's what you would need is death. And it's very strange that his criminal's death, which he was only dead for 3 days, right, paid for everybody's sin, and yet my own sin could never be fully paid. It's for eternity. I would have to be tortured. None of the story makes sense, but I just wanted to point that part out. That's what I have for today from that one. And finally, in my utmost for his highest today, we have, I show God my lack of love and respect for him by the insensitivity of my heart and mind toward what he says. And then he goes on to say that if I had a friend and if I love that friend, I will just instinctively understand what he wants. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I'm very close to my husband and I don't always know what he wants. I do know a lot of things that he wants, but and I used to expect him to read my mind, and some ways he's done that to me before, and yet that's not healthy. We shouldn't have to instinctively know what God wants. We can instinctively feel what's loving and kind. Maybe that's what God wants. I would say that's the desire of source because that's who we are at source. But that's not what's being taught here. There's this being outside of yourself that has given you commands somewhere. And it's funny because the rest of the other quote he says is, a flower, a tree, or a servant of God may convey God's message to me. What hinders me from hearing is my attention to other things. And it's not funny, haha, but it's interesting. In the day before, he had said basically that we don't listen to God, and we just want to listen to his messengers, but not to him himself. But yet in this one, he says, that we should listen to his messengers, and we should listen to a flower or a tree or a servant of God, that's how God might be speaking to us. And he's actually had mixed messages throughout, because then sometimes he says he doesn't speak through words. Where are we getting this message from God? Now, I would say, as someone who has a spiritual, I'm pulled in the spiritual direction towards oneness, this energy, this source. I would say that we know inherently deep down we want to be loving and kind. We don't always know what to do, but we do want to love one another, and then we get programmed to do otherwise. So that's my belief right now. It could be challenged. But then I would say that there's an intuition to be drawn towards love and goodness and kindness, right? But I don't think there's a God and he's written a message somewhere and I've got to find that message. I think it's everywhere and in everything. And maybe in some way he's saying that when he's saying it's in the flower and the tree or the servant of God. But he contradicts that in previous writings. So Oswald Chambers very much frustrates me. He very much he's giving this mindset. When I read his books, I feel the mindset of like, I'm worthless. I'm not any good. God, I should just be so grateful and groveling before God because he's so wonderful and I'm just kind of a piece of crap. That's what it feels like. So that's the message from all 3 books, and do with it what you will. I'm going to remember what the Book of Awakening says. I said it right this time, that it is not, what is not expressed is depressed. Remember that and have a great day. Remember, you get to decide what you devote your thinking to today. You might not be able to control every thought that comes in, but you can definitely decide what you entertain. And whether it comes from something I've said today or something completely different, choose wisely and set an intention that truly benefits you and those around you. And if you found any value here today, don't forget to like and follow. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and let's keep our minds on what helps us love ourselves and each other a little bit better every day.